This episode of the Recovery Couch is brought to you by JB Davis at Performance Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram. For integrity service and unbeatable deals, ask for JB in Centerville and tell them the Recovery Couch sent you. What's up, guys? Welcome back to Recovery Couch. I'm your host, Brandon Couch, and this is episode 7 of PTSD Unpacked. Today we're talking about one of the heaviest, hardest parts of trauma recovery. The thing that doesn't just hurt you, it lies to you. Shame. Let's call it what it is. Shame is the voice that says it was your fault, or you should be over it by now, or you're too damaged to ever be loved, or nobody else would react this way, or if people really knew what you've been through, they'd leave, or if they knew what you've done, then they would never like you. Shame is the silent companion of PTSD, and it's brutal because while trauma happened to you, shame is the story you tell yourself about what it means. And most of us, especially if we've been through long-term or childhood trauma, we internalize shame like it's a personality trait. We might find ourselves over-apologizing, avoiding closeness, hiding parts of our story, feeling unworthy of healing or help, or struggling to believe that God could love someone like us. But let me tell you the truth. Shame doesn't want you to hear you are not what happened to you. It doesn't want you to hear you are not weak. It doesn't want you to hear that you are not a burden or you are not too far gone. On the contrary, shame wants you to hear the exact opposite of that. Shame keeps us sick because it keeps us silent. And silence is where trauma festers. But when you speak it loud, in a safe place, with a trusted person, or in prayer, shame loses its power. That's why Revelation chapter 12, verse 11 says, "They overcame by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony." Not by perfection, not by pretending, by testimony, by truth-telling. Your story isn't something to be ashamed of. It's something God can use to bring light into someone else's darkness and healing into your own. Here's something else. Shame tries to tell you that you're the only one. You're the only one dealing with this. You're the only one who's ever been through that. You're the only one who feels this way. But that shit's a lie, bro. You are not alone in what you feel. Even if your trauma makes you feel isolated, you're not alone. Healing starts when you start telling the truth to yourself, to God, to a counselor, to a safe person in your life. And when you do, that shame that felt like 1,000 pounds, it starts to shed weight. It starts to lift. So if you're walking through trauma and carrying shame like a second skin, I want you to hear this loud and clear. There's nothing shameful about surviving. Nothing at all. There's nothing weak about struggling. As a matter of fact, I see it more as a strength than a weakness, because if you can struggle through this tough-ass life, then by golly, in my book, you're a warrior. And there's nothing broken in you that God cannot redeem. I want to thank you for tuning in to the Recovery Couch. In the next episode, episode 8 of PTSD Unpacked, we'll talk about relationships and why PTSD can make closeness feel almost impossible, even with the people we love the most. So until then, speak truth over yourself. Let shame know it's no longer the narrative of your story, and let shame know that it's no longer welcome in your life. You're healing, and that's something that you should be proud of. This episode is brought to you by Greg Swartz at Remax Victory and Affiliates. Whether you're buying or selling your home, Greg brings heart, hustle, and honesty to every deal. Call Greg at 937-477-8975 today.